Hello everyone, welcome to the trailer channel. Today we are going to be taking another look at the Scrapmaster again today, because in the last video on this machine I upgraded the graphics card, the DVD drive, and I had to install a sound card, but I also installed some speakers, $5 from the Dollar Tree. Because, well, they're better than what's using on the monitor. That's all I really wanted. It's just a little louder. So, what I want to do is I want to run BeamNG Drive and I want to run FurMark. See what I mean? It's just a lot louder now. But of course, the graphics card is heating up when I do this. 60 degrees on a machine like this. And just to show you it's still in there. There we are. Let's see, HD Radeon 6000, 6800 series. We're using regular DDR memory. What you can see there, this is an old system. There's some 2008 RAM, we have some 2006 RAM. This system is probably from 2005. Doesn't give us a date on the motherboard, but of course this card looks like it came out in 2010. So basically what I did here is the car equivalent of taking an oil burning Honda Civic engine, 4-cylinder, and slapping a new transmission on the back of it with like a 6-speed transmission and calling it a day. And, well, I'm very happy with the performance of this machine. I have BeamNG Drive version 22 because of one vehicle that you can't play anymore on the latest version. And here we are. It's going to take a little while because everything has to load in. Yeah, hard drive is being used a lot. You can see it's not the fastest machine, but you have to agree that the fact that this machine is even running this game in the first place is impressive. Look at it. Look how smooth this is now. Let's see if we can get an FPS counter up. Apparently I can't get an FPS counter. Yeah, this is the vehicle I like to play all the time on this game. And now I have a machine that can do it. Let's go over here where the graphic card is going to be pushed a little more harder. I'll be surprised if I can recover from that landing. And I did. I did not expect to be able to land that at all. But this is just such a fun little vehicle just to drive around with. The brakes are so weak, you have to slam on the brake pedal and use the parking brake to help glide you to a stop. It's that heavy. I'm not going to... Nope. Okay, you get the idea. And it stalled out. Still drives perfectly fine, somehow. But anyway, let's check in on our GPU. And it's very cold in here. And it's at the maximum we got it up to is 57. So I think we need to try another map. I don't think this one's stressing it enough. Actually, I have a better idea on how to stress it. I installed Furmark, potentially the same version of Furmark. Yeah, it's at 1.33 now, and I have 1.22. Yeah, I have version 1.22. I think this was the one I used back in the day on this machine. And I remember I got like 1 frame every 2 seconds on this test with the stock graphics card I had. No anti-aliasing, 1024 by 760. 720. No, whatever that resolution is. 1280 by 720. Okay. And GPU stress. Do the burn in at your own risk. Wow. Look at it. It's actually running. Running with a smooth 37 frames a second. And of course, we can see temperature over here is climbing up to 60s. I expected that, because it's trying to push the graphics card as hard as it can. That's impressive. Fan speed is increasing. You can see 53% now. What's this CPU running at? Only 50%, which is honestly impressive for a test like this. GPU load is 99%, and the fans are at 61%, and it's at 74. So, what I want to do is I want to shut this machine down. So it got up to 75%, 75 degrees Celsius. What I want to do is, I have a machine I bought at a scrapyard, and well, it died a few months ago. It died a few months after I fixed it. But I had a fan harness, one for the back. This came from the power supply of that very computer, because the power supply had rust in it, and I didn't want to reuse it. So I took the power supply apart and took the fan out of it, and I wired it to the wiring harness of this little fan here with this Molex connector, because this tiny fan came with this Molex connector, and it had 2 wires coming off the Molex connector, which goes to more 2 wires, which goes to the fan that came from the power supply. So what I want to do is I want to put this on the side panel of this machine, since it has ventilation holes, and I have some tiny zip ties here. I want to see if we can make that stay cooler for longer. That's my goal anyway, because I think that case might be getting pretty hot in there. So let's go ahead, shut the machine down, take the side panel off. I don't have to shut the machine down, but I'd rather not get my hands caught in a fan. So, trying to worm my way around this camera. You can see I have some little zip ties here, which fits through the holes of the fans. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to zip tie these fans to blow air in. This down here is where the graphics card sits. Unfortunately, I can't just put a fan here, not like it would fit anyway, but I'm going to put it here and hope that it, sucks air in. I might put it diagonal like that, or even better like this in a way. And then this one's going to go up here. These wires will be zip tied in place to this cover, so I can probably put it right there and put this right here. See what I mean? And we'll have more air intake, and all I have to do is run this and plug it into the computer. Not like you could really see anything down here. Yeah, that's my plan. Okay, so this is what I've gotten done so far. I have one, I'm going to cut these zip ties of course, but if you notice, I have enough space. I can totally smack another one right there and straighten this one up, but I'm just going to try one for now. And if it ends up still getting a little warmer than I'd like, I will put another one there. So I can grab my cutters and try to cut them off as far as I can. Be very careful not to cut your wires. Don't ask me how I know. Now all that's left to do is mount the big one up here. Sorry I don't work while I'm filming. I just not very good at it. Okay, so I figured more fans, more airflow. So that's what I did. Even though this bottom portion here isn't doing anything, and the mesh is already pretty restrictive on airflow, both fans should make up for that, plus this fan up here. Also sucking air in, blowing it on the CPU cooler, and also just blowing air around. Hopefully it gets circulated down, and then eventually blown in with these, and then it should blow out the back. The graphics card is, or something, I don't know. But hopefully these just help circulate air around and blow new fresh air into the case, as well as this one, which will also help cool the CPU, which occasionally I leave this machine running overnight, rendering videos, oops, and I think it deserves its extra ventilation. As long as it's lasted, it deserves it. So I'm going to finish using up my last few bit of cable ties I grabbed out of the thing. You know, make it so these wires aren't running everywhere. Just make it so they aren't, you know, going to come in contact with their own fans or other fans and other wires and stuff. Because I've already secured this up here, so I was worried about it. Okay, so as you can see, I tried to tie up all the wires, keep them comfortable and out of the way. You can see, this is where I'm going to plug in. And then I also have added zip ties for strain relief on important cables that get weight on them. You can see there as well, another zip tie for those. Zip tie here for this one. So all I have to do is plug this in and all three fans should work. And if I remember correctly, we got it up to 75. Yeah, we could have got it up higher, but, you know, good enough for us. Temperature may have also increased in here, so if we stay around in the lower 70s for longer before we get up to 75, I will consider this a huge success. Just remember, graphics card sits somewhere right here. Hopefully these fans will be pushing in enough fresh air for this area here to get fresh air and stay cool, and hopefully it pushes it out back. And hopefully this air will help keep the CPU cool, because I have no idea what it runs. But whatever. This should be beautiful. And I will either have to undo all of this to make it fit and just kind of cram the wires in there, or this will work beautifully first try. You know, that's just how cable management goes. So this is just one last look before I have to put it in the machine. I had to run this wire around for this fan here. I didn't install this fan, it's been here, and as you can see, it is perfectly secure. What are you talking about? I had to kind of route this wire carefully, and the wire for this fan here helps feed these fans. So I have 4 fans running off of one Molex connector, and I can still plug some more in if I want, but you know, kind of off the table right now. You can see the other two over there. All I have to do is see if this side panel fits, and it should be fine. Okay, so now we will see. The machine is a lot louder now. Wow. Extra airflow, I guess. Yes. Wow, this thing is loud. I love it. I tell you, if this graphics card ain't cool now, it ain't ever gonna be. I bet those fans are moving a lot of air. I hope so, anyway. In fact, over there I actually have one more fan. Let's open up CPU temp as well. Okay, so now, we see just how high the temperature on this thing gets. I probably should have taken an idle temperature, but it's idling at about, 32. Hard drive light is not on, so the system is now idling. We'll also open up Task Manager, move the FurMark window out of the way. Let's see. $50. We'll sit here and leave it running for a little while. And we'll see what it does. You can see the CPU temperatures as well. Those shouldn't get very high. I think we would have already gone up to 70 by now. Oh, it's going up to 70. Let me go around and feel the case. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Oh, it's gone up to 70, but oh yeah, I can feel some heat out the back of those PCI slots. I have one PCI slot that's a vent. I'm pretty sure you can tell if I cover the vents, will the temperature go up? That's a stupid question, but yeah, look, it's going up, 72. But it's struggling. It's a lot louder, but it also stays a lot cooler. Well, a lot cooler. It was going up to 75. Probably would have went up with ease, but just for giggles. Whoops. Let's go ahead and get that out of here. Max is at 42 and 28 degrees Celsius for the CPU. Nothing interesting there. But now, let's turn the fan speed up. $70 degrees. So I turns the fans on, and as you can see, that made a huge difference. Okay, not a huge difference, but it's now in the 60s again with all that airflow. So that's cool. Let's leave it there. And now, Do it in full screen, 2 times, anti-aliasing. So, when it drops off from a load, it cools down a lot, and it takes a lot to make that thermal energy back up, because it's staying at 65, and it's at 29 frames a second. Keep in mind, when I first built this machine with one of those other graphics cards I had, the one that was in here, it did maybe 1 frame a second, if you were lucky. And now it's handling this with what I would call ease. I should probably try this on my other machine that has a my most powerful graphics card I ever had. This is probably my second most powerful. $67. Yeah, it's really struggling. Let's see what MSI Afterburner is saying. It's probably, yeah, 60s. 66, 67. It just got up to 67 before I shut it off. That I would call a success. You know, at the end of the day, it would make me feel better knowing that my components are as cool as they can possibly be, even if I have to sacrifice my ears for it. Okay, so let's go back and see what it got up to. 49 degrees maximum. Really? That was it? Okay, so I'm going to take it off of auto and let it put the fan speed back down to normal. CPU usage is still high, which brings me back to my next. So the maximum was 52 and 43 degrees Celsius. I say that is a win, because, well, listen to it. It's wonderful. So, that's kind of an end of video thing. I figured I'd give you a full story on the Scrapmaster, which is a compact Presario SR 163WM. You can see this was originally an XP machine. It used an AMD Sempron processor, which I have right here. That's right, I upgraded the processor in this machine because it uses socket 939. Now, I originally thought this machine was from 2001, but that simply cannot be right because, well, this machine uses DDR. Unless it was a very, very high-end machine of the time, you probably were going to be using PC-133, which this does not use. It uses DDR. Now, some of you might be saying, in the younger audience, might be saying, What DDR? DDR 2, DDR 3, DDR 4? No, DDR, as in DDR1, which this is approximately a machine from 2005. As you saw, it has 3 gigabytes of RAM. It has a dual-core processor running at 2.2 gigahertz, and I just upgraded the fans on it. So, yeah, this was also the first time I swapped the CPU out. I had to literally chisel it off of the heatsink because it was stuck there for so long, using a hairdryer, a hammer, and a flathead screwdriver. I got it off. Now, the story goes way back to when I was a kid, like 5 years old. I remember this sitting up on top of the file cabinet. Of course, I don't remember my dad ever buying it, but it was just always, you know, there. And, well, years pass, we move, circa 2010, And then around 2016-ish, I'm going to say, my dad got a new computer. And, well, new-ish. It was refurbished. Still from 2009, which, you know, it's still an upgrade from this in almost every category. Except graphics, which is now. But even still. So yeah, we move, and a few years go by, so this machine was in service ever since it was new, and then around 2016, it was, you know, not discarded, but put in retirement, so to speak. So yeah, I still had a computer by this time, Optiplex GX260 with the Pentium 4. I upgraded it to 2 gigabytes of RAM. I had 2 hard drives, one 80 gig for Windows XP, one 40 gig for Ubuntu. And well, when the 80 gig hard drive went out, it blew the motor controller, and when it did, it blew the IDE controller, because I couldn't boot a live CD from the optical drive, and I couldn't boot from either of my 2 hard drives. So I thought that it was just an issue with my computer, not an issue with my hard drive at the time. So I never bothered to try the Ubuntu drive when I got a PCI IDE controller in. So I stuffed it in that machine, and of course it wouldn't boot because the hard drive was destroyed. The hard drive destroyed the computer, or vice versa, whatever came first. So yeah, that's the story of how my first computer met its end, because I misdiagnosed it. But of course, I have a lot more computers now. I can swap parts more effectively. I can diagnose better. So my dad decided to give me this computer, and well, with all the scrap parts I had lying around, because both of those machines use DDR, I had already upgraded my machine to 2 gigs, and this has 4 RAM slots. I was able to put 2 512s in here, and then 2 1 gig sticks. So I have 3 gigabytes of RAM in this computer, so that's already an upgrade from what I had. Now the CPU was a downgrade, but of course, not that it really matters now, because I'm actually able to upgrade it to a dual core. I'd like to see you do that with an Intel system, like upgrade a Pentium 4 to a Core 2 Duo, or a Celeron D to a Core 2 Duo. Man, I hate the Celeron D. That thing is just so slow. But of course, I just start throwing all sorts of scrap in this thing. I got 5 IDE hard drives. One of them was a 160 gigabyte hard drive. I still have that drive, although it's not in this system anymore, because it was just so loud. It was getting older, and besides, this machine also has SATA, so it not only had IDE, but it has SATA as well. Oh, and sometime when my dad bought this machine, he upgraded the power supply on it. Probably after he just got it, if I had to guess. Of course, I was a kid and I don't remember that. But it's definitely a 500 watt power supply, which is how I was able to install that beefy graphics card on here. Well, beefy for it, you know, but for nowadays. So yeah, I got a 160 gigabyte ID hard drive. The optical drives out of my first computer, which aren't in there anymore. I put some RAM out of my first computer, if I didn't say that already, and I loaded Windows 7 Starter on it. And then later I swapped out the CPU, as I said, for a dual core, which was my first time ever swapping a CPU. I did literally no information except, oh wow, it uses socket 939. Let's see if I can find a socket 939 dual core on eBay. That's literally all I did. I found one for 20 bucks. 24 I think it was exactly. I bought it. I wish I could say I just slapped it in the system and it went off. You know, a lot could have went wrong there, and it just didn't. That's why I call it the Scrapmaster, because everything I've thrown at it thus far, it had no objections with. The fans, and it gets even better. So I used this machine for years. 2 years, maybe. sometime in 2018 I built it. So from 2016 to 2018 it was sitting idle in retirement, and then I got it in 2018, started messing around with it, building it back up again to, you know, something I've never had before. And then I moved once more to this place here, where I have my trailer, and, well, one day I was in my room and I smelt an electrolyte smell. It's very similar to a old CRT TV I have that I picked up off the side of the road. It filled my room with this smell that kind of made you a little bit dizzy. So I eventually tracked it down to this machine. Turns out it has been in use for so many years, the capacitors started popping open and the liquid, the electrolyte, started to boil and produce a smell. So, time to recap the motherboard, right? Recap, what's that? I just pulled them off, cut the legs of the capacitors off, and sent it. And here it is today, with however many capacitors that were bulging and leaking all over the board. I cleaned the board up with alcohol, and the freaking thing still works. Like, I leave this thing on overnight, I come back, and it's still perfectly running. I can shut it down, grab my video, I grab my video off of it, and then I shut it down. Because I use this to edit my videos. Yes, this machine from 2005, I used to edit videos. What's your excuse? Now, granted, it's 2023, and we've had this computer since 2005. You do the math. That is quite a long time. And keep in mind, we weren't the type of people that just shut this computer down at night. No, we left it running like a server 24/7. Almost the entire time it was in service. Yeah. Needless to say, this has easily became one of my favorite machines just because of how reliable it has been. All these years, and it's still alive. I can press the power button, start it up, stuff appears on screen. This is the cable that I'm going to use to get this video off of it. I have Ubuntu and Windows 7 installed on a 250 gigabyte hard drive. I really should upgrade this machine to a SSD eventually. I don't know if it's using SATA 1 or SATA 2. I don't really care. So that's another thing. This machine has 32-bit Ubuntu on it. And, well, Kdenlive and 32-bit, let's just say it's not the most stable thing. But it does work. As long as you're able to work around the kinks, it works. Oh, and there's the rest of this video, as I was talking about. Of course, you can't hear it, but the fans are very loud in the system. You just can't hear them over my AC unit. But yeah, that is the first processor swap I have ever done. I am very happy with it because it still works to this day. I can play games on this system. I can watch videos on the system. I can browse the internet on the system. In fact, that's what I do. When I download ISOs, I usually either use this machine or my Power Mac over there. As you can see, DDR memory, or you can't see, DDR memory, 3 gigabytes. Maybe later I can upgrade this to 4 gigabytes, but you know, it's kind of hard because you don't really know how long this machine is going to last. You know, it could very well fall out tomorrow, in which case, well, then it's time we start dragging parts off of this one and slam it into something else. But there you go. There's my very poorly told story of the Scrapmaster. The machine I still use to this day, after all these years of being in the family, still being in service. Literally the only things that are still in this machine are the motherboard and the case. Literally everything else has been replaced. Well, except the heatsink. That's also been staying in there. I put a piece of tape over this light here because when it was in my room it was a little bit too bright for my liking. And, oh yeah, the power switch kept falling out when I go to press the button. So what I did is I just wrapped a zip tie around the grill up front. Zip tied the switch because the switch is like this long. Well, the bar for the switch is like this long. So I just zip tied it around in this area to the front grill, and now power switch is held in place.